Hello and welcome to my channel. Today's video we are going to be making this little Miss Santa Claus. She is what I consider a no-sew body pattern, which means we're going to start by making the arms, and then we're going to make the legs, then we'll move on to the head, work our way down, attach the arms, do the body, do the skirt, and then attach the legs. We'll put in the eyes, stuff, and clothes. And then we will have to attach the ears, the hair cap, the apron, and a little bit of embroidery on the face. For this video, I used a number 4 medium weight yarn, a 4.25 millimeter hook, and 12 millimeter safety eyes. This is a crochet along, so I will be doing every stitch with you, and I am also providing a drop down at the top of the screen with the pattern instructions for the first 30 seconds of every row for you to follow along with. And if you enjoy this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. Okay, I think that's everything. So grab your yarn and let's get started. All right, we are going to begin by making the arms, and you can start any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be making a knot with a loop on the end as if I was going to be making a chain. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, chain 1. And remember, that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop. And for row 1, we are going to do 6 single crochets into the loop over top of our tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull that tail if you need to close that hole. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we're going to do 6 increases, so that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around. So increase 1 and 2, increase 3 and 4, increase 5 and 6, increase 7 and 8, increase 9 and 10, and our last increase 11 and 12. Row 3, we're going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 4, we're going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 5, we're going to start off with a double crochet cluster of 4 and then 11 single crochets all the way around for a total of 12. So for our double crochet cluster, you're going to yarn over, you're going to go in that next stitch, grab your yarn, pull up, grab your yarn again, and go through the first 2 loops on the hook. So that's 1, yarn over again, go in that same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn and go through the first 2 loops on the hook. That's twice. Yarn over again, go in that same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn and go through the first 2 loops on your hook. That's 3. Yarn over in that same stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn, go through the first 2 loops on your hook. You now have 4, and now you're going to grab your yarn and go through all those loops on your hook. And there's your little thumb. And now we have 11 single crochets left. I'm going to start by counting this as 1 stitch and my first single crochet as 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 6, we're going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Row 7, we are going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 8. So 1 single crochet for 1, 1 decrease for 2, and then repeat that around. Single crochet, 3, decrease for 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, and our last decrease, we are going to go in and start our decrease, but we're going to stop when we have our loops on the hook because we're going to change our color to white. So I'm just going to trim that off. Leave yourself enough for tying. And then you're going to grab your new color. This is the ruffle for her sleeve. And you're just going to tie that on nice and close to the hook 2 or 3 times. And then once you have that tied on, you're going to grab that new color and you're just going to pull it through those loops to finish off your 8th stitch of your previous row. Now these next 2 rows are a tad tricky, but only because we're working with such a small amount of stitches. It's definitely worth doing it. We'll go nice and slow. So we're going to be working in the front loop. So instead of going down and through under both sides of that V, we're going to come up and come up through the middle of the V with our stitches because we're going to need these back loops for our next row. Okay, so we're going to begin by doing a slip stitch in that front loop. And then we're going to chain 1. And now for row 8, we're going to do 8 half double crochet increases all the way around in the front loops. So a half double crochet is basically the same as a single crochet, only you yarn over first. So yarn over in that first front loop, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn and go through all 3 loops on your hook. So that's one side, yarn over in that front loop, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn and go through all 3 loops. So we've got 1 increase in the next stitch. That's 2 half double crochet increases, half double crochet increase in the next front loop. That's 3 half double crochet in the front loop. That's 4 half double crochet increase in the front loop. That's 5 half double crochet increase in the front loop. That's 6 half double crochet increase in the front loop. That's 7 and half double crochet increase in the front loop, and that's and that's 8. And then we're just going to slip stitch and tie off into our first half double crochet. So this is your chain, this is your first V behind that stitch. So just slip stitch, we'll tie that off, leave a little bit of a tail. We'll put that down on the inside in a minute. Now you're going to grab your red or whatever color you're using for the sleeve. You're going to have to tie some sort of knot to attach our yarn, and I'll be doing my knot with the loop on the end. So I fold my yarn over in half, grab that end, wrap it around my finger, bring it down, around, and through like I'm tying a knot, and then I just pinch that loop and slide that knot up. If you have a different way, like a slip knot or something, you're welcome to try doing it that way. Now what we want to do is get in the first back loop. So this was our last stitch right here. And if you kind of look where your increase was, you can dig down and you'll grab that back loop, attach your yarn, pull it through, but try not to bring the knot through, just a little piece of loop, and then you're going to chain 1. Now for row 9 in the back loops, we are going to do 8 single crochets around. So starting in that same stitch that you just attached your yarn, 1, and if you fold this ruffle down, it should make it easier to see your back loops. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then our last one down in here, 8. Now this was probably the hardest part of this whole project, so if you're done here, the rest is going to come quite easy for you. I'm just moving my stitch marker into place here. Okay, rows 10 to 17 are just going to be 8 single crochets all the way around. I'm going to do those consecutively, so that's 8 rows of 8. 8 times 8 is 64, so I'm going to do 64 single crochets, and I'm going to flip my marker every time I hit a set of 8. So make sure you're getting in that first stitch. Remember, there's a chain there, so you want to go in between the chain and your first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to move my stitch marker and keep on counting. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, flipping my marker, keep on counting. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, flipping my marker, keep on counting. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, flipping my marker, keep on counting. 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, flipping my marker, keep on counting. 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, flipping my marker, keep on counting. 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, flipping my marker, but keep on counting. 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64. And now we're going to add some stuffing. So grab that and get that handy. All right, so grab about a handful of stuffing. We're going to split that in half, and then we're going to split it in half again. And we're going to get that down inside the hand, You may need to use your scissors or something to get it down all the way to the bottom. And let me take this out. What you want to do is kind of have a round, firm hand. I'm taking the other half of my little bowl of stuffing. And I'm just pushing it in and around. I'm going to split my other ball in half. And I might end up putting a little bit in the hand, but what we ultimately want is to have our hand firm and then our sleeve part to be so fairly flat. So we don't want that. I might even just take some of that out, because we don't want the arm sticking straight out from her body. And let's insert our hook back in. And we're going to do 3 single crochets across. So we're going to go in our next stitch. And then we're going to go in our last stitch. Single crochet. That's 1. Go in the next stitches, front and back. That's 2. And in the last stitch, front and back. That's 3. Then you can tie that off and give it a cut. Leave a bit of a tail, because even though we aren't sewing these on, I do something with the ends to help secure the arms. And then let's also get rid of this little piece of white. So we'll thread that end on. And we're just going to come down and bring it underneath the hand. So I go in that same stitch where my knot is, catch a piece of stitch on the trim, and then I'm just going to go in the hand and come out the center. Pull that through. You may have to pull your ruffle out a bit here, and then give it a cut. All right, if you are done your first arm, I will be putting a screenshot in the next frame with a timestamp so you can go back and do your second arm. And if you're done your second arm, just keep on watching and we will move on to the next part. All right, now we're going to do the leg, and this time you are going to have to make a knot with a loop on the end because we're making a chain. So again, fold your yarn over, wrap it around your finger, bring that loop down, around and through, pinch the end, and then slide that knot up. You want your loop to be just big enough for your hook to fit in. And you're going to grab your hook. And we are going to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, row 1, starting in the second chain from your hook, we're going to do 1 single crochet in the end. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do 3 single crochets in this end, and we're going to pivot around to the back side of our chain as we go. So 1, turn a bit, 2, turn it so you're on the other side of your chain, 3. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets in this end. 1, 2 in the same stitch. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to start with an increase in that first stitch. So 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to do 3 increases around this end. So increase, that's 1, increase, that's 2, increase, that's 3. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to do 2 increases on the end. So that's 1 increase and 2 increases. Row 3, we're going to start by doing 1 single crochet and 1 increase on the end. So 1 single crochet, 1 increase. Then we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase 3 times around the end. So single crochet, increase, that's once, single crochet, increase, that's twice, single crochet, increase, that's 3 times. Now we're going to do 3 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase 2 times around the end. 1 single crochet, 1 increase, that's once, single crochet, increase, that's twice. Row 4, we're just going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 5, we're going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 6, 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 7, we are going to start off with 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to do 6 invisible decreases. So for an invisible decrease, you're going to come down up through the front loop of the next stitch and then the front loop of the next stitch. So you have 2 front loops. Grab your yarn and pull through. Grab your yarn again and pull through the 2 loops on your hook. So that's 1 invisible decrease, front loop, grab your yarn, pull through, grab your yarn, pull through again. That's 2 invisible decrease. That's 3 invisible decrease. That's 4 invisible decrease. That's 5 invisible decrease. That's 6. And then we should have 6 single crochets to finish off the row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Row 8, we are going to start off with 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now we're going to do 6 invisible decreases. So remember the front loop of the next 2 stitches. 1, another invisible decrease, 2 invisible decrease, that's 3 invisible decrease, that's 4 invisible decrease, that's 5 invisible decrease, that's 6. And then we should have 3 single crochets left. 1, 2, 3. Row 9, we are just going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and on our 12th stitch we're just going to go in and grab our yarn and leave those 2 loops on the hook, because now we're going to switch to our leg color, and I'm going to be using white. So let's give that a cut, leave enough of a tail to tie, and then grab whatever color you're using for the leg, and you're just going to tie that nice and tight, as close to the hook as you can get it. Two or 3 times. And then you grab that new color and pull it through those 2 loops to finish off that last stitch of the row. All right, for rows 10 to 19, we are going to do 12 single crochets all the way around. And again, I'm going to do those consecutively. That's 10 rows of 12. 10 times 12 is 120. So I'm going to do 120 single crochets and then flip my marker every time I hit a set of 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, flipping my marker but keep on counting, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 97, 98, 99, 100, and I'm going to start back at ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, flipping my marker, keep on counting, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now we're going to stuff our leg, so get your stuffing ready. Alright, let's take our stitch marker out. You're going to grab a nice big chunk, a little more than a handful. We'll split that in half, and then split that in half again. So we're going to take our first half, and we're going to get that up inside the toe. So where we did our decreases is where our toe is. So we want to get that nice and firm up in there. So what I like to do is I get it down into the foot, and then I hold my foot against the palm of my hand to keep this flat, and I kind of swoop up my finger up to get it up into the toe. And then we're going to take our second half, and we're going to put that down in the bottom of the foot. I'm back to that weird stuffing again. That doesn't work as nice. So when you're happy with the shape and the firmness, you're going to grab a little bit of your other chunk of stuffing, and you're going to stuff your leg kind of on the firm side, but you want to be able to close it into a triangle. So probably up to about the last 2 rows. So stuff that down inside right to where the foot and the leg join. And then slowly add a little bit more at a time until you're happy with how much stuffing is in there. I think I might put a touch more in. So see, I can still kind of close that, pinch that closed. Now grab your hook and get that back in. And again, you're going to go in that next stitch on the front, and you're going to go in the last stitch on the back. We're going to do 6 single crochets, but we're going to be increasing in the middle. So 1 single crochet, 2, make sure you get through the front and the back, 2 single crochets, and then we're going to do an increase. So that's 3 and 4, and then 2 more single crochets, 5 and 6. And we're going to tie that off, and again leave a little bit of a tail. You don't need much. We're just going to tie these on the inside. So if you've just finished your first leg, I'm going to be putting a screenshot in the next frame with a timestamp so you can go back and do your second leg. And if you've finished your second leg, just keep on watching and we'll continue on to the next part. I'm just going to give you a little heads up before we move on to the head. Last year when I made Santa, my whole plan was to pretty much reuse the whole video, but insert a skirt and then different details on the head. But it turns out, as I started making her, pretty much the only thing that's the same is the head. So I'm going to be cheating and using old video to make the head, and then I'll come back at the arm row and continue on the new version for Mrs. Claus. All right, now we're going to be starting at the top of the head, and I'm going to be using white and then switching to the face color later on as we get further down. And you again can begin any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'm going to be doing my knot with the loop on the end. Insert my hook, chain 1. Remember, that doesn't count as a stitch. I'm just attaching my yarn to my loop. And for row 1, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we're going to do 6 increases. So that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around for a total of 12. So increase, 1 and 2, increase, 3 and 4, increase, 5 and 6, increase, 7 and 8, increase, 9 and 10, increase, 11 and 12. Row 3, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. 1, increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18. Row 4, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, increase, 3 and 4, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, increase, 15 and 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24. Row 5, you're going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. 1, 2, 3 and an increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, and an increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, and an increase, 14 and 15, 16, 17, 18, and an increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, and an increase, 24 and 25, 26, 27, 28, and an increase, 29 and 30. Row 6, you're going to do 4 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and an increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and an increase, 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and an increase, 23 and 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, and an increase, 29 and 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and an increase, 35 and 36. Row 7, we're going to do 5 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 42, and then we'll switch colors on our last stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase, 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and an increase, 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and an increase, 20 and 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, and an increase, 27 and 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and an increase, 34 and 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and our increase, 41, and then on our 42nd stitch, just bring that up and don't finish it off so we can change to our face color. So we'll cut the white. Whoop. Then we're going to add our face color. Tie that nice and tight down close to the hook. A couple of times. And then bring that new color through to finish off that last stitch of the row. Rows 8 to 14 are just going to be 42 single crochets all the way around, and I'm going to use my row counter to keep track of that. So 42 single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So that was row 8. Another row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. That was row 9. Another row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So that was row 10. Another row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. So that was row 11. Another row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. That was row 12. Another row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. That was row 13. One more row of 42 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. That was row 14. Row 15, we're going to do 5 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and a decrease for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and a decrease for 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and a decrease for 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and a decrease for 36. Row 16, we're going to do 4 single crochets, a 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a decrease for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a decrease for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and a decrease for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and a decrease for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and a decrease for 30. Row 17 is going to be 3 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4, 5, 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, and a decrease for 16, 17, 18, 19, decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. Row 18, we're going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. And on the last stitch, we'll be changing color. So 1, 2, decrease for 3, 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, 8, decrease for 9, 10, 11, decrease for 12, 13, 14, decrease for 15, 16, 17, and a decrease for 18. Whoops, sorry, we're changing color. Don't finish off that stitch. So you want to leave your 3 loops on the hook and then grab your red, and we'll cut off this face color and tie that on nice and close to the hook a couple of times. And then pull that through to finish off that last stitch. Okay, now we are going to add the arms, so get those ready. And for row 19, we are going to start with 3 single crochets. 1, 2, 3. Now grab one of your arms, and remembering that where your stitch marker is the back of your work. You want your thumbs and your strings to be facing the front, and we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and through the head. So in the arm, in the next stitch of the head, 1, through the arm, through the next stitch of the head, that's 2, through the arm, and the next stitch of the head, that's 3. Now we're going to do 6 single crochets across the front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now you're going to grab your other arm. Again, make sure that the strings and the thumb are facing to the front. And we're going to do 3 single crochets through the arm and through the head. 1, through the arm, through the head. That's 2, through the arm and through the head. That's 3. And then you should have 3 single crochets left to finish off the row. 1, 2, 3. Row 20, we are going to do 2 single crochets and an increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, increase, 3 and 4, and repeat that around. 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8. And when you get to these strings, make sure you don't go over them. We need them on the outside for later. 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, increase, 15 and 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, and our last increase, 23 and 24. Row 21, we are going to do 24 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. Row 22, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, increase, 24 and 25, whoops, 26, 27, 28, increase, 29 and 30. Row 23, we are going to do 30 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. Row 24, we are going to do 4 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, increase, 29 and 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, increase, 35 and 36. Row 25, we are going to do 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 26, we are going to do 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 27, we are going to do 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. Row 28, 36 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. All right, we're gonna add our eyes now before we go any further. So you're gonna want to flatten out your little guy using the arms on each side to kind of get your center, and then flatten your head. Okay, so grab your eyes and get them handy. And we are going to start on our center loop where we first started. That's going to be row 1. And we are going to go down 11 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And we're just going to go in between rows 11 and 12. And that's just finding our row, and now we got to find our center. So I'm going to use the stitches down here because they stand out so good with the two colors. So I'm just going to go inside. So that right there is our center. So it looks to me like I need to move over 1 stitch. And that looks pretty centered to me. And I am in an actual stitch. I'm not in a hole. And I'm going to grab my eye, and we're going to go over 4 holes from our pin. So our pin's here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into that 4th hole. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to find that hole right beside your pin, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then into that 4th hole. And just have a quick look, double check that you still feel like they're in the center. And if you're happy with them, we'll put the backs on. So we're just going to fold her little top over. And what I like to do, I know some of you say it's tricky to get the eyes on like this. So what I like to do is I grab my thumb to the eye, and then I'm just going to push it up through the neck. And then it's nice and open there to put your back on your eye. So give that a squeeze. And then we're going to do the other eye. So thumb on the eye, push it up through the neck, grab your back, and squeeze that on there. Just a little note, I don't stuff mine till I'm down to the last few rows. So if you need to now, you can stuff as you go, but I won't show stuffing till I'm way down around adding the legs. I'm going to do the skirt now, and for the skirt we're going to be going in the front loops. So again, you're going to come up through the V, because we're going to need the back loops to continue on after. Okay, so we are going to start by making a slip stitch in the front loop of the next row. And then we're going to chain 1. And this doesn't count as a stitch. All right, so for row 29, in the front loops, we are going to do 1 half double crochet, 1 half double increase, and then we're going to repeat that all the way around for a total of 54 stitches. So for a half double crochet, remember you yarn over. We're going to go in that same stitch, grab our yarn, pull up, grab our yarn, and go through all 3 loops. So that's 1. Now we're going to do a half double crochet increase for 2 and 3. Half double crochet, remember stay in the front loops. 4, half double crochet increase, 5 and 6. And repeat that around. 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, increase, 20 and 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24, 25, increase, 26 and 27, 28, increase, 29 and 30, 31, increase, 32 and 33, 34, increase, 35 and 36, 37, increase, 38 and 39, 40, increase, 41 and 42, 43, increase, 44 and 45, 46, increase, 47 and 48, 49, increase, 50 and 51, 52, increase, 53 and 54. All right, and then we are going to slip stitch into that first V. So remember, we have a chain 1, and then right behind our first half double crochet, we're going to slip stitch, chain 1, and for row 30, we are going to do 54 half double crochets all the way around, starting in that first stitch that we just slip stitched in. So all half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, excuse me, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. Okay, and now again we're going to slip stitch just behind that first stitch in that V. And we're going to chain 1. Remember, that doesn't count as a stitch. Now for row 31, we're going to do 54 half double crochets all the way around, beginning in that first stitch we just slip stitched in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. Okay, and again, we're going to slip stitch in that first V. And chain 1. Row 32, again, another 54 half double crochets starting in that first stitch you just slip stitched in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. And again, we're going to slip stitch in that first V of the previous row. chain 1, remember that doesn't count as a stitch, and row 33 we're going to do 54 half double crochets all the way around, starting in that first stitch that we slip stitched in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. And then again, you're going to slip stitch into that first V, and this time you're going to tie off, unless for some reason you want to make a little bit longer skirt. And then you'll just continue going around your 54 half double crochets. So we're just going to tie that off. So originally I left it here, and then I came back in and did a row of white. I actually wasn't sure about it at first, and then after I did it, I'm happy with it. So I'm going to just do the white here before we start on the rest. So if you're going to put a little white trim, this little piece down here, we're going to have to attach our white. So you're going to have to make a loop with a knot somehow. So again, I fold mine over, wrap it around my finger, bring it down, around and through, and then pinch that loop and slide my knot up. And you don't have to do it this way, however you prefer. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go a stitch or two behind where I tied off, so I can go over top of this little tail. So insert your hook in the back, just behind your knot somewhere. Get your yarn on your hook. Whoops. Trying to look in the camera while I do this, and that doesn't work. Okay, so you'll pull that through. Try not to bring the knot through if you can. Keep it on the inside. And you're just going to chain 1. Now starting in that same stitch, going all the way around, we're just going to do 1 single crochet. So that's 54 single crochets. There's no row number. This is just optional if you want to add this to your skirt. So this is 3. Make sure you're going over both tails, the white and the red. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I'm dropping both my tails here. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, whoopsie, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54. And I have that false stitch in between. Normally I would go like this, but it doesn't really matter your stitch count on the last row. So I'm just going to go in that false stitch just so there's not a space. And then I'm going to slip stitch into my first stitch. And we'll tie that off, leave a bit of a tail to weave in. And we might as well just do that quickly. Oh, I could move my camera, but it's in there tight. Far down as it'll go. So we've probably all done this before, but if you've never weaved in an end, I'm just going to come down through one of my V's, and I'm going to come down. I want to stay in the white so that I don't see it. So I'm just going to try and pull that knot in if I can. And then we're just going to go, actually these stitches, look at the difference in my yarn, how thin this is and how thick it is on this side. I'm going to go on this side because you won't see it as much when it's thicker. So we're just going to go under the white. You don't want to see it on this side. And generally you would do this a few times. I'm just going to go back and forth twice, just because any little thing I can do to speed this up a bit, I need to do. So I just went twice. You go as many times as you are comfortable with. And then we will come back and work on the rest of her little body. All right, now we are going to start on the bottom half, and I'm assuming you're going to be using the same color that you did the legs in. So I did my legs in white, so I'm using white. We'll be attaching this yarn. So we're going to have to make your knot with the loop on the end, however you've chosen to make yours. I'm going to flip her over. And we want to find our first back loop before we started the skirt. So these loops in the back are your back loops. So this would have been my last stitch right here. This would have been my first stitch, so you want to make sure you put your hook in that first back loop. We'll attach the yarn, pull it through, try to leave the knot on the back side, and chain 1. For row 34 in these back loops, we are going to be doing 36 single crochets, and we're going to start in that same stitch that we attached our yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, and 36. And if you went in the wrong stitch at the beginning, you may have to dig down to get that last stitch. Just make sure you have 36 single crochets in this row. Row 35, we are going to be doing 4 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. Remember, you have a chain 1 and a slip stitch here, so you want to make sure you're going behind your first single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a decrease for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and a decrease for 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and a decrease for 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and a decrease for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and a decrease for 30. Row 36, we are going to be doing 3 single crochets, 1 decrease. Repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, 3, and a decrease for 4. 5, 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, 15, and a decrease for 16, 17, 18, 19, and a decrease for 20, 21, 22, 23, and a decrease for 24. All right, now we're going to add our legs. So again, we're going to flatten our guy out. We want to use the arms and the eyes kind of to center the bottom down here. And I am just going to show you how I mark those so that we're all in the same spot in the front when we add our legs. So what we want to have is 12 single crochets across the front and 12 on the back. So it'll be part of the front row and part of the back row. And since we're going around this way, remembering if you're left-handed, you may be doing it backwards. We'll be going this way. So our first leg is going to start on this side. So we want to start on this side and we want to count 12 single crochets over. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're going to put that in that 12th stitch. And I'm just going to mark that. So when we get around, this will be where our first leg starts. So let's get our hook back in. And get your legs handy. And for row 37, we are going to start with 8 single crochets or whatever number you need to get to this stitch marker. Mine should be 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm to my marker where I marked my first leg, so I can get rid of that. And you're going to grab your first leg And you want to have the toes facing the body, because if you remember, she's upside down. So when we turn her over, we want her toes pointing up. And we're going to do 6 single crochets through the leg and through the body. So through the leg, and then through the next stitch of the body, just like we did the arms. So that's 1. Through the leg, through the next stitch of the body, that's 2. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 3. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 4. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 5. And through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 6. Then you're going to flip that string to the inside, grab your other leg, and again you're going to do 6 single crochets through the leg and through the body. So through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 1. You may have to pull that one tight. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 2. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 3. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 4. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 5. Through the leg and the next stitch of the body, that's 6. Again, put that string to the inside, and then we should have 4 single crochets left, but if you changed your number on this side, you're going to have a different number on this side. So it'll be this number plus this number equals 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's just tie these up, and maybe we'll add stuffing to the head now if you haven't already. So you're just going to grab your 2 leg tails and you're going to tie them loosely. You don't want them too tight because you don't want your legs to smush up like this. So just even with the outside of the body here, loosely at first and then tighter as you go, and then you can trim those ends. All right, and then let's grab ourselves some stuffing. And you're gonna put quite a bit up into the head. You want it to be fairly firm, but you also want to protect your neck. Just kind of hold it with your hand as you're shoving your stuffing in to kind of keep all these stitches from stretching, especially where your decreasing rows are. And that will help from seeing the stuffing there. And as you're stuffing your head, kind of make sure you're going up all the way into the top, keeping kind of a round shape, unless you're going for a different shape. And I'm just going to kind of squish it in, kind of around the sides and the back. So see, I have a bit of a lump, or like not lump. I have an empty spot there, so I need to get some over in there. Just kind of have a look, see how the shape's going, the firmness. I think that's pretty good. I might just put a little bit in the top of the head here. Now, if you look, this is another easy way to not stretch your neck. If you look inside, this is where, like, I've only stuffed the head. I've got nothing down in this space here where the neck is. And then when I stuff the body, I'm just going to match that up to there. I'm not actually stuffing in the neck. So like I just start lightly stuffing now into the body without pushing up into the head. And that will also help keep these stitches from stretching. So that's as much as I'm putting in now because I don't have enough space to fully stuff and keep her in the camera. So let's get our hook back in. I may have to take some of that out even as we are here, but we'll see. I only have 3 rows left. I'll let you decide where you need to add stuffing as you're going around. I'll probably wait until another row or so. Okay, so for row 38, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. So 1, 2, and a decrease for 3, 4, 5, and a decrease for 6, 7, 8, and a decrease for 9, 10, 11, and a decrease for 12, 13, 14, and a decrease for 15, 16, 17, and a decrease for 18. Whoops. I might add a little bit of stuffing now. As you get stuffing this, you want to make sure you have quite a bit in the body, but the actual bum kind of stays flat so she'll sit. We only have 2 rows left. Row 39, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, repeat that around for a total of 12. 1 single crochet, decrease for 2, 3, decrease for 4, 5, decrease for 6, 7, decrease for 8, 9, decrease for 10, 11, and our last decrease for 12. Okay, I'm just going to add some stuffing. She's pretty close to where I want her, but I'm just going to add a little bit more off camera. Okay, so what I did is I pretty much have as much stuffing as I want in there, but when I finished off, I kind of scooched my stuffing to the sides. So she's got a round bottom, and then if I need to add stuffing after I do my last row, I can just add into this little hole that I've made here. So let's get our hook back in if you haven't already. And for row 40, we are going to do 6 decreases. Try not to grab the stuffing as you're going. So 1 decrease, 2 decreases, 3 decreases, 4 decreases, 5 decreases, 6 decreases. And then you're just going to slip stitch into the next stitch and tie that off, leaving yourself a little bit of a tail to sew that closed. I'm just going to have a peek to see if I need to add any more stuffing. I think it's good. Yeah, that'll be fine. So I'm going to take my stitch marker out now. And then let's get our darning needles and we'll close this up. Now all you're going to do is take your top loop of your last row and you're just going to weave in and out, catching all those loops as you go around. And then once you're at the beginning, you're going to pull that closed. Then I like to just put a knot in the next loop. I'm sorry, the weight's a little hard to see. And I'm just going to tie my knot. And then I'm going to go down through that center somewhere and out. And I'm just going to give it a little bit of a tug to pull that knot on the inside. And we'll cut that. And then we'll deal with these little strings now. So grab one of your arms, strings, tails, it doesn't matter which one. We'll do this exact same thing for both of them. And what you're going to do is where your last stitch of your arm was attached, you're going to go down in that hole right there between the neck and the body. You're going to come out the back center of the neck somewhere. And then you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side with the other yarn tail. So right where your arm string and that knot is and your neck and body attached, you're going to go down in there. And then you're going to come out where your other end came out. Now keep track of your ends, which is which. And you're just going to tie one knot. So just like that. Wrap your arms around And this might not go smoothly because of the stuffing I'm using, but we'll see. And then you're just going to pull these ends, and you're going to bring these knots and these arms in and forward. See, that one doesn't want to come back. Be careful not to break your string. And then when you're happy with the position, you're just going to give that another tie to secure it. And then we'll put those down on the inside. So you go back in that same hole and then just out the back somewhere. How to cut. Okay, I think we're going to work on the face first. So you're just going to grab a little chunk of whatever color you use for the skin. We're going to thread it onto the needle. And we're going to come somewhere into the center. So I'm going right in the same row that my eye post went in. I'm going to come out on the front of the eye. Leave a little bit of thread on one side for tying. And we're going to go around the eye. If you didn't use safety eyes, you can still do this, but you'll just go into the rows instead of around the post. So we went in there, or we came out there. We're going to go in the next row down against the eye. And we're going to match that over on the other side in the same hole. So we're just going up, kind of at a 45-degree angle from the eye. Then I'm going to go around my eye, catching that eye post. And then I'm going back in this stitch where I started. I went on this side on that eye, and I'm going to come out where my other piece of string is. Now keep track of which string belongs to which eye. I'm going to give them one tie, just like we did with the arms. And then we're going to pull and push the eyes down and together at the same time. Just be very careful not to break your thread. And if you do it too close, she will look a little bit cross-eyed. So just be aware of that. So I think about there's where I want them. So I'm going to tie that again to secure. Then we'll rethread those on and put them to the inside. Oop. We'll just go back in that hole, and usually I would go back, but I've got some really strange stuffing that is really catches my thread. So I'm just gonna go to the side on this one. And then I'm just gonna give that a pull. Make sure that knot's through. And then come back, and if you need to, fix that little hole where you tied that up. And you're gonna get another chunk for the nose, a little bit longer, just in case, of the skin color. We'll thread that on. And I'm going to use my pins to show you what I'm doing. So this is our row where our eyes went in right here. We're just going to go down one row and then just decide. So I'm going to pick the center, and center is a stitch for me, I think. Then you're just going to decide how many stitches wide you want your nose. And I'm going to go a hole and go into that one, hole and a hole and go into that one. And it is a little bit wide. So if you want a smaller nose, you'll just go into a different space. So you start one row down, I'm going to come up. That's my center hole there. Leave a little bit of string for tying. Go around. And I picked this hole, so again, my nose will look a little wide. And we're just going to go around and around. So our nose is about the right puffiness that we want. And I usually probably go about at least 5 times. So that's 2. 3. 'Try and make sure your strings are staying in line. So, I think this is 4. I definitely need another one. Just gonna have to play with it. So this is 5, and I think I'm gonna go one more time, which will be 6. Yeah, so I'm ending now. So now I want to come out where I started on just that one row below. And then we'll give those a tie. And you want to tie it kind of loosely so you're not pulling the stitches on your nose. And we'll thread those back in. Come back down in that hole and then out somewhere. And again, don't pull this too tight. Once you have that knot through, you're just going to pull your ends. Fix that stitch. And then don't pull when you cut your end here, because again, you don't want to pull that nose. If you have a piece that's hanging out, you can just swoop it back out. And then we'll do the eyebrows. So I have a scrap piece of white just hanging out that I'm using, but you can cut another piece. Thread that on your needle. And now I'm just going to go one row up from my eye row. I think I went inside the eye, so I'm kind of right above the eye, but you can go one row forward on each, depending on how you want your eyebrows to look. You want about the same amount of thread on each side. And then just kind of play with it and see where you want your eyebrows. And I want mine to go about right here. So I am going the stitch beside the eye and then into the next stitch. If you're going by the top, I'm going 1, 2, and down. And because the white doesn't show up very good on this color, I am going to go around twice. I'm going to come right back in where my start of my eyebrow was. Sorry, I'm trying to do this left-handed and it's a bit awkward. Then you're going to go back in and come out in the center somewhere. And don't pull this too tight. Then you're going to do the same on the other side. So I'm down one row and then skipped a stitch and went in here. If I was at the top, I was 1, 2, and down. I'm going to come back up. Pull that a little bit. If it's a little on the long side, you can tighten it a bit to match your other side. I'm going to go back in and come out the center. Just kind of check that they're pretty close to each other before you tie. And then we're just going to give them a light tie like we did the nose, because we don't want to pull those too tight. Thread those ends back on. And then I'm just going to come out the white on the head somewhere. Don't pull this too tight. You just want to watch and get that knot through. And once it's through, why is this stuck? You can just fix that stitch again. And then we'll cut those ends. Remember, don't pull too hard. And then we'll grab some black. This is going to be for the mouth. And we are going to separate these into little strands of 1. So we have 4 strands here. I'm basically making my own embroidery thread. And then we're just going to separate. It helps if you put the yarn, like I put mine between my knees, so it doesn't knot up. Sorry, I had to go off camera for that. So we got the 1 thread. And if you have embroidery thread, feel free to use that. It'll probably look a lot better. And I want my mouth to be about 2 rows down from my nose. So this is where my nose is. So I went 1, 2, and I want the one side of the nose, or the mouth, to start here. I'm right under the eye. And then I'm just going to go across and try and find a stitch that matches. So about right there. Now, of course, you can have a different size mouth if you want. So just pin your mouth wherever you want it. Then you're just going to come underneath, and you can come out through 1 pin. Leave thread on one side for tying. Then you're going to go to the other pin. And you're going to come out somewhere in the center. So I actually have a stitch close to the center, so I'm just going to decide which. I'm going to come on this side, I think. So I want to come out of there. We'll pull our mouth tight. Actually, I think I should have went the other way. So I am wherever you feel center is. You can always change it. I'm just going to come underneath that thread. I'm going around it, and then I'm going to pull it down. And that is going to give me my little mouth. And you can pull each side, kind of decide how you want it. If you need it a little tighter. And then you're going to go in that same hole that you just came out of, where you did that loop, and you're going to come out where you started to tie that off. It's a little fiddly, but I actually wish I did the thinner thread on my other stuff. I quite like this thinner smile. Usually I don't separate my thread. And then we're just going to put that out somewhere. Don't pull it too tight if you can help it. And we'll give that a cut. cute little face. Okay, I think we'll do the ears next. So grab your skin color. Leave yourself a bit of a tail. And then you should be able to make this any way you prefer. We're just going to be doing 6 single crochets into a loop. But you do need a tail for attaching it to the head. So I make my knot with a loop on the end, grab my yarn, chain 1. And this time we're not going over the tail, and we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to tie that off again, leaving a bit of a tail. We might as well just make our second ear. So leave your tail, make your loop however you're doing it. Insert your hook, grab your yarn, chain 1, and remember 6 single crochets, not going over top of the tail. 1, could have made my loop a little bigger. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then again tie off, leaving yourself a bit of a tail for attaching. Now to attach the ears, we are just going to count from behind the eyes. And we're going to count 5 stitches and go in the 6th. Yeah, this will work. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we'll go in that 6th hole. Do the same thing on the other side. We're just counting above the eye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in the 6th hole. Just have a look. Do they look even to you? And if you're happy with them, grab your ears. And remember when you attach your ears to make sure the same sides are facing. So I'm having where you can see the V's showing on both sides. That will be the front of my ear. So you're going to take the top ear string. Get that on your needle, and you're going to come into your pin and around that stitch. So that's from your 6th hole into your 5th hole. Pull that through. You're going to go into the first stitch on the top of the ear. I forgot I tipped that down. Then you're going to go down 1 row and around a stitch. Try not to get that other string in your way, like I did. And you're going to go through the hole in the loop of the ear. And you're going to go down a row again. And then you're going to go into that bottom stitch of the ear. Make sure that's nice and tight. And then you're going to tie it in the back to the other tail. That might be enough. And then rethread those ends on. I'm going to go down right close to the ear and kind of evenly out the back center with your ears. And then we'll pull that closed. And now grab your other ear. So remember which way your other ear was. And for me, because I'm using the other side of the tail, I'm going to just take that end and make sure it's up through that first stitch. Just because it ends up on the back side. So now you're going to go into where your other pin was on the other side. And you're going to go around that stitch. Go through your first stitch of the ear. You go down a row. You go through the loop you made to make your ear. You're going to go down a row again. I wish I had a better angle at this. And then you're going to go through the last stitch on the bottom of the ear. And now you're going to tie these two together. Thread your ends on. Come down as close to the ear as you can, and then come out in the same place you did with your other ear strings. Right, now again, keep track of these. Now you can do what you did with the arms. I'm going to tie mine one time, turn it around. Now if you want, you can pull these in together. I didn't think she needed it that much. I just gave them a teeny little pull, just so they're kind of indented a tiny bit. And then I gave it another tie, and then we'll hide those ends on the inside. I was going to try a trick, but it didn't work. I am using this weird thread though. Almost feels like foam, but you can tell there is 4 separate strands. And then just get them out somewhere. Sorry, that was a battle. I didn't think you needed to see that. All right. Okay, now we are going to work on the hair. So grab your hair color, and for this one you can start any way you prefer as long as you have the same amount of stitches in row 1. I'll be doing my knot with the loop on the end like I was going to be making a chain. Insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up, and chain 1. And remember, that does not count as a stitch. That just attaches our yarn to our loop, And for row 1, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the loop over top of our tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then pull that tail to close that hole if you need to. Grab a stitch marker if you're using one. And for row 2, we are going to do 6 increases, so that's 2 single crochets in every stitch all the way around for a total of 12. So increase 1 and 2, increase 3 and 4, increase 5 and 6, increase 7 and 8, increase 9 and 10, and our last increase 11 and 12. Row 3, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. So 1, increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, and our last increase, 17 and 18. Row 4, we are just going to do 18 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Row 5, 18 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Row 6, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 decrease, repeat that all the way around for a total of 12. 1 and a decrease for 2, 3, and a decrease for 4, 5, and a decrease for 6, 7, and a decrease for 8, 9, and a decrease for 10, 11, and a decrease for 12. Next row, we're going to be going in a front loop. So remember, you're just grabbing that first loop and coming up through the middle of the V's. So row 7, in the front loops, we're going to do 1 single crochet, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 18. So 1, increase, 2 and 3, 4, increase, 5 and 6, 7, increase, 8 and 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, and our last increase, 17 and 18. Row 8, we are going to do 2 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 24. 1, 2, increase, 3 and 4, 5, 6, increase, 7 and 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, increase, 15 and 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, and our last increase, 23 and 24. Row 9, we are going to do 3 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 30. 1, 2, 3, increase, 4 and 5, 6, 7, 8, increase, 9 and 10, 11, 12, 13, increase, 14 and 15, 16, 17, 18, increase, 19 and 20, 21, 22, 23, increase, 24 and 25, 26, 27, 28, and our last increase, 29 and 30. Row 10, we are going to do 4 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 36. 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase, 5 and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, increase, 11 and 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, increase, 17 and 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, increase, 23 and 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, increase, 29 and 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and our last increase, 35 and 36. Row 11, we are going to do 5 single crochets, 1 increase, repeat that all the way around for a total of 42. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and an increase, 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, increase, 13 and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, increase, 20 and 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, increase, 27 and 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, increase, 34 and 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, and our last increase, 41 and 42. Row 12, we are going to do 42 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Row 13, we're going to do 42 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Row 14, we're going to do 42 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. Row 15, 42 single crochets all the way around. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42. All right, that's as far as I went with single crochets. Our next row, our last row, I did kind of something different. So I kind of did a combination of double crochets and half crochets. So I'm going to do it like this, but you may want to play around and do double or like increases, or maybe you want to do little waves on this row. Like you can't, my whole point was to have this come up to a peak and kind of swoop down. But I mean, really, you can't even tell that I have a single crochet and 2 slip stitches up here, hardly, once it's sewed on. So I'm going to do my row like this guy, and then if you want to play around with it, feel free. You'll probably come up with some cool ideas, I'm sure. All right, so we're going to start with a slip stitch in the next stitch and a chain 2 because I'm going to be double crocheting. All right, so for row 16, we're going to do 11 double crochets across, and for a double crochet, you're going to yarn over. Remember, we're starting in that first stitch. You're going to go in, grab your yarn and pull up. Grab your yarn, go through the first 2 loops on the hook, grab your yarn again and go through the last 2 loops on the hook. So there's 1 double crochet. Now we're going to do 2, yarn over into your stitch, grab your yarn and pull up, grab your yarn, go through the first 2 loops, grab your yarn, go through the last two loops. So that's 2 double crochet for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And now we're going to do 8 half double crochets. So remember, same as a single, but a yarn over. So 1 half double crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And now we're going to do 1 single crochet and 1 slip stitch, and that gets us halfway around from the back of the head to the front. And now we're going to do this whole set of stitches in reverse. So we're going to do a slip stitch, a single crochet, then we're going to do 8 half double crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then we should have 11 double crochets left. So remember, yarn over, grab your yarn, go through the first 2, grab your yarn, go through the last 2. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then you're just going to slip stitch just behind your first double crochet there. And then tie off, but leave enough of a tail to sew this little hair onto your guy. So if you go around once, twice, that should be more than enough. stitch marker now. Now you're going to want to put a little bit of stuffing into this little bun. Doesn't have to be a lot, just enough to keep it, hold its shape. But you don't want it to push up on the head too much. So there we go. And then you're just gonna, I'm gonna keep the string in the back. And where our two little slip stitches are, we want to be in the center. So just like this. And I'm gonna pin this on. So I for sure want to make sure that stays in the center. And remember, you don't want to see the white here. I only did that in case you wanted to give different hair or something. Then you have the option. And I'm going to give this a bit of a pull because I could have made it bigger, but I got a little bit lazy. So I got it in the centered in the back now. And then I'll just put a couple of pins around. I definitely want one to come down to the ear here. Just kind of give her a bit of a shape there. And do the same thing on the other side. Just kind of make sure you make it even. I think I could fix that a little bit better. There, I kind of am going to give her a bit of a better shape there. I only did the front and the back pins when I was sewing the first one on. So I didn't really pull this down. But see, you can see the pink skin color in the back here. So you're just pinning around however many you want. And I'm not worrying if it's straight. I kind of like it bumpy like that. I'm going to sew it on like that, I think. Just give it a little double check. I think this one needs to go down here. That better? Yeah. All right, so once you have it pinned on, you're going to thread your needle. I'm going to use my purple one. It's plastic, so I got to be very careful, but you should be able to see it a little better. And I definitely have too much yarn. Let's cut some off. I can use that later for eyes or something. So it doesn't really matter which way you go. I'm going to go this way, I think, because it works better for the camera. So I'm just going to go under, catch a stitch, and come back up and catch a stitch on the hair. When I'm going back down, I want to make sure I only go over a stitch, and then if you want to, you can skip a few stitches and cheat a little bit and come up. I'm going to come up right where my pin is, and hopefully that'll hold its shape there a bit. So then you're going to have to go right down beside. And then again, I'm going to skip a couple stitches, and I'm going to come up where my pin is. Go right back down, skip a couple stitches, and come right where my pin is. Now I'm going to do a few more stitches in the front because that's the part that you see and that I kind of pulled a little bit. So down, I might only skip 2 stitches now. Make sure that ear is okay. Down, skip a stitch or 2. And I might pull this. I'm not too concerned. I just want to make sure I don't see that hair, that white line at the end. And I'm going to come up again where that pin is. Maybe I'll go in front of it. Come right down across. pass, make sure I'm not in the same stitch. And just do that all the way around. While I'm doing this, I'm just going to remind you all that I do have a Facebook craft page, and I'll have that listed down in the description. If you ever want to share anything you've made with me, if you want to go on to that, click that link, and then if you go into any post on that page, you can share a photo or a comment or whatever you'd like. That might be it. So now I'm back to skipping a few stitches at a time here. Then I'm right, this is where I started, so I'm just going to come down and out, and then I'm going to try and tie a knot underneath the hair a little ways. So I'm just going to grab a stitch. Actually, I'm going to have to grab this stitch. So I'm just grabbing a stitch that I sewed at the beginning. And I'm just going to tie a knot. Feel free to double knot it if you need to. And then you're just going to put that on the inside and out somewhere. Oh, I can't wait to turn her around and have a look here. Give that a cut. Oh, we're getting close here. See, I don't mind these little wavy marks that it made. All right. Now we got to do the apron. All right. Leave a bit of a tail, but you don't need too much. You'll probably end up cutting it. We're going to have to make a knot with a loop on the end, or however you prefer to start a chain. And we are going to chain 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now starting in the second chain from the hook, we're going to do 6 single crochets across for row 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're going to chain 1 and turn. So now you're working on the back side. Row 2, we're going to do 6 single crochets across, and we're starting in this first stitch right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 3, 6 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 4, 6 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 5, 6 single crochets across. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Chain 1 and turn. Row 6, we're going to do 6 half double crochet increases across. So half double crochet increase once, increase twice, increase 3 times, increase 4 times, increase 5 times, increase 6 times. Chain 1 and turn. Row 7, we're going to do 1 half double crochet increase, 10 half double crochets, and then a half double crochet increase. So half double crochet increase, 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Then we're going to do 10 half double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then a half double crochet increase on the end. So that's 1 and 2 in the same stitch, chain 1 and turn. Row 8, we're going to do a half double crochet increase, 12 half double crochets, and a half double crochet increase at the end. So half double crochet increase, 1 and 2 in the same stitch, 12 half double crochets across, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then a half double crochet increase on the end. So 1 and 2 in the same stitch. And then we're going to chain 1, but don't turn. Now we are going to single crochet up to this top corner, and you can just kind of pick and choose where you want to go. Generally, I put 2 in each set of half double crochets and then 1 in the single crochets. But sometimes it's hard to tell. As long as they're kind of spaced around evenly. And then when you get to the very top, we are going to chain 22. This is going around the neck, so I'm going to chain 22 and then we're going to measure it on her neck. You may need to add more or less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. And now we're just going to place it. So what I do is we've got our single crochets up to here. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows of single crochets. And then when we start our half double crochets, that's where I want to sit in the same spot as where we started our skirt. So there'll be single crochets and half double crochets. So we'll just place it there for now. Oops, my hook fell out. Try not to let this twist. And you're going to wrap it around her neck and just kind of see where it comes to. Without pulling it too hard. So I'm good with 22. If you want to add more, take one off. That is fine. Now we're going to do it on her because this is not going to come off her head. So it's a little tricky, but if you kind of pull it to a spot that's comfortable, and then you're also going to want to be going over top of this tail. And you're just going to single crochet down this side like you did the other side. So get in that top corner. Make sure you're under 2 pieces of yarn there. And you see this? Yep. That nice and tight. And then just crochet, single crochet down the side. Just try and do it similar to what you did on the other side. Once you get going, it'll be a little less awkward. And then when you get to the bottom corner, you can just slip stitch into that end. And then you'll tie off. You need to leave a little bit of thread so you can weave that last end in. I'll go there. I'm going to cut this one off because I crocheted over it. This is my beginning tail. And then grab your darning needle, however is comfortable for you. We want to put this, weave this in on the back side of the apron. So I'm just going to go across. I'm coming up into this set of stitches here. And again, you can go back and forth as many times as you're comfortable with. I'm actually just going straight across and then I'm leaving it because I don't want to pull it too tight here. You don't even have to do this. I just thought for some reason OCD, I don't know why, but I wanted it to go all the way across. Just make sure you don't tighten that. You want it to come out in kind of a little flare at the bottom. And then I just cut a piece that's long enough to go around the body and a little tie at the back. So I'm going to take one end. And where the single crochets and the half double crochets meet on the apron and on the dress, I'm just going to tack it down a little bit. So I'm going to come, make sure it's straight where you want it. I'm just going to come and grab under the dress in that line and then come up on the apron on that line, leaving about half on the other side. I'm just going to go up and down and continue doing that around. Can you see in there? Come up the next stitch. probably an easier way to do this, but I haven't found it. I just want to make sure I'm in a straight line here and going around all these stitches. You don't even have to do this part. I just thought it saves a bit of a hassle of it flopping around. Okay, once you have that kind of weaved back and forth across the front, just make sure that your apron strings are about the same length. And I'm just going to come up, just so we can keep this side down. I come up the very last stitch through those V's. I shouldn't have done this left-handed first. I don't know why I did that. And then pull it around, and then that'll kind of keep, so this end will pull, and see if this wasn't tacked down, it would kind of lift up. And I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. So just in that same line, I'm just coming under this V on the very edge so I can pull that over. Now you're going to flip her around, and you can tie this. I mean, you can get more fancy. You can make a chain here or ribbon even. I'm just making a little bow. And again, if anyone knows what I'm doing, why every time I tie a bow, I have to flip it upside down for it to stay. I don't know why. Maybe it's the same reason I can't make a slip knot. It don't matter how much I think about it or how much I try. I always do it backwards, so the part that slips is the short end. All right, and then I also just added a little red bow up on top of the head. You know, I like my little bows everywhere. Just to quickly add a little something. Whoops, wrong side. So just get that. I mean, and this would look cute with so many different decorations. If you had little hollies or mistletoes, if you had little mini, even like pine cones, you could probably use some decoration on her apron too, but. And there we go. Alrighty, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button and click that bell. Not only does that help me out, but you will also be notified every time I load a new video, as well as any likes, shares, and comments are always appreciated. And I'd like to give a huge thank you to all my super thanks friends listed at the end of this video. And as always, take care, be safe, and happy crocheting.